Welcome back to Shorty's SuperCoach. Here we'll be doing the first instalment of Shorty's Shortlist, which is going to be a series of previewing each club for 2016 SuperCoach, of course. We'll start with the Adelaide Crows, but it won't be the your obvious guns and players. Everyone knows that. I mean, you do enough research and you look at the averages. Everyone knows Sam Jacobs is going to be a good pick. We're going to have a bit more of a look at this early stage. I mean, it's early days, of course, but if you're really into your SuperCoach and your footy, you're thinking about it already. Who might be that mid-pricer? Who might be someone that's very undervalued? Because the prices are out now. Pre-season's getting right into it. So I've got a few names with the Crows. We'll preview every side. But, guys who add a bit of value are going to be popular. They might be rookies. Possibly had a down year. Expect them to bounce back. So I've got a few names to start with. And Brad Crouch kicks us off. And he's an exciting talent, but he didn't play any footy last year. I mean, his first season averaged 87.1. That was 2013. But look, in his fifth game, I mean, he was highly touted player. In his fifth game of AFL, 31 touches, 114 SuperCoach points. So there's no query on his scoring. 2014 averaged 94.5, but if you take out his injuries, where he had a 43 and a 72, two injury-affected games, it bumps up to 102.7. So that's unbelievable numbers for a player of such a young age. Look, he missed last year with Achilles problems, foot problems, so that's a bit of a concern, to be honest, especially the foot problems. But his talent can't be questioned, and his price is going to be very juicy. I mean, he's a guy that we know can score. He's in our midfield. He's going to be undervalued, and the points that he can produce are very, very tempting. Even more tempting, I mean, when somebody changes teams, it creates openings. It definitely impacts players. Paddy Dangerfield, obviously the big name who left the Crows, that naturally opens up a position for someone like Crouch. And it's not always as simple as saying he'll come in, Dangerfield goes out, like for like, etc. But there will be that extra position. There'll be that extra guy who's going to have to rotate more through the centre bounces and all that. So Crouch could be a man, and he's definitely someone who'll be popular. He'll be on a lot of people's radars for sure, I think. So definitely a guy, if he has a good pre-season, a lot will be locking him in. Dangerfield's absence will affect a couple of players, Crouch being one, but another being Rory Sloane, for potentially a different reason, and that'll be that Sloane is definitely going to cop the number one tag now. Can he handle it? That's the big question. I mean, the start of 2015 was unbelievable. 145, 134, 140. And look, then it dropped away for several reasons. He has struggled with the tag at times. I mean, that's not to question his contested ball ability and clearance ability, but I think the extra pressure he hasn't always adapted to, and sometimes it does take time when you initially get that number one tag. It can be a bit of a shock, and at times, even with Dangerfield there, I mean, his hot form, the impact he was producing, he was the man being tagged. But also in round 6, fractured cheekbone. Again, in round 13 it happened. So that's why his average is slightly down, 105.5, sorry. But 2014, 114, just a touch under 115 he averages. 107 before that and 106 before that in 2012. So we know he can score extremely well, but aside from that 114.8 in 2014, that's the sort of stuff we want from a midfielder. He's just been slightly under that average mark you probably want from a midfield player, because we really want a 110 plus. You want that start that he produced, the 140s, and then dropping down to the 100 in their poor games, maybe in 90, but that big ceiling. An average of 106 that he's sort of been around for most of his career when he's been at that elite level. Is it enough? I'm not too sure. But he's definitely has the potential to, if he lifts his game. I mean, he's 26 years of age once the season starts, 118 games. He's ready to go bang. Loves a tackle, contested ball, clearance. His average of disposals isn't even that high compared to some. So he accumulates points without winning, your 30 possessions every week. So that's a plus. My main query would be about that tag. And at this point, I probably wouldn't be focusing too heavily on him. I think he's a not a bad player. I mean, everyone's really enjoying what he produces. But the fact is, can he handle the tag? So that'll be something you're going to have to watch over pre-season. But he may be tempting for some. We'll focus more on the defence here. Brodie Smith. What a rollercoaster ride he was throughout the year. Ended up averaging 77. That's off the back of the 2014 where he averaged 93.5. So we know he can score points, and that's 77. Oh, gee, it's tough to read into. Absolute roller coaster, as I said. He started the year with 144, then 117, and he was concussed. I don't think he played much the last quarter and was just dominating. And look, the concussion really did hurt him throughout the season. I mean, he went off concussed again in the first term in round 7, just to 16 points. Round 23, I think he hurt his ankle against Geelong, just a couple of injury-affected games there. I mean, he scored 43 points in the first quarter, had 9 kicks against the Cats and scored 43, so it shows he can score points. At times I found he just went missing and, would cop that offensive tag, which he didn't handle very well, but it's hard to tell who's going to play that absolute halfback role. I think Pike has noted in the preseason so far that Smith will be, probably the player they will go through off halfback, because at times it was Yench. Henderson has done it in the past as well. So look, he's someone at that price, and depending how many defender midfielders we get, I know we've gotten a few just having a quick look at it, but Smith is going to be something you're going to have to consider because he's undervalued, underpriced, and for what he can do, you got to think about it. I mean, any defender who can score 140, which he showed he could do. I mean, in the elimination final, he scored 107, so it wasn't as though he had a poor year. It was just so up and down for many reasons. And I think adapting to a bit more attention from opposition clubs was another one in conjunction with the injuries. But I think I like Smith. He's a beautiful kick. Perhaps could win a bit more contested footy or his own footy, but he's a man I would be looking at, no doubt. A couple other Crows. I mean, I mentioned Henderson. Tough to say. I mean, again, it'll depend on his position and where he lines up for the Crows. I think he had an injury setback recently, as did Andy Otten. He'll be very, very, probably a bargain basement price, I think. 27 years old. He missed last year. He's had those knee problems. He's probably a guy I'd be steering clear of, I think. I mean, coming off a knee, it's not exactly what you want. Also, he's become somewhat of a journeyman. I mean, is he even in their best 22? I mean, that's a question. And that's only a question that'll be answered come pre-season, and then when it really starts amping up and the final 22s start to reveal themselves a bit more. But Otten, he'll be on the radar, no doubt, simply because of his price and, his age. Not often, too, that, go intertwining, but there's definite risk with him, no doubt. Yench is another one, averaged 89.5, just off of 7 games. And look, I mean, he can definitely score points, as we know, but didn't get to too many games. Again, he's played that halfback role at times, but could be battling it out with Smith. And look, I'll finish with perhaps an interesting one. Taylor Walker, we don't often consider, unless you're Lance Franklin, unless you're Buddy, you don't often get talked about as a tall forward in our SuperCoach forward line. But Walker, I'm not saying pick him, but I'm saying just have a look at him. For these reasons, I mean, back in 2012, it seems so long ago, but he averaged 100.2 and just busted out some huge numbers. And we know he's capable of the huge numbers. And you might say, well, look, he hasn't delivered since then. That was just a big year. He's now ironed out just sort of that 80 average. But 2013... did the knee, no good, injury, ruined his year. 2014, off the back of the knee, you're never at your best, averages 80.1. So look, we'll forgive him for that because he, entering off the knee, you're never back to your best. 2015, gets the captaincy. We know everything that happened with the Crows this year in devastating fashion that affected him so much, and taking that extra weight as a skipper, and had a lot to deal with off field. But look, I mean, his round 1 score of 177 highlights his upside. His downside is the fact that he can go missing. But look, he's 26 years old, 107 games. He is more than capable. We know he can score big. It's just a matter of when he was scoring those big scores, I was with Kurt Tippett alongside. And at times I think, look, he's had the good games. He still had those big games, despite averaging 82.1. But it's those games where he's more quiet. And I feel if we can see more of a lift from the likes of Jenkins, Lynch, etc., then that will definitely help out Walker, or maybe someone else jumps up as well to help out that second spot in the forward line. But at the moment, if the Crows aren't playing well and the defence gets on top of Adelaide, then Walker just gets double teamed, gets beaten too easily, doesn't get enough help. And that's the risk, as we know, with tall forwards. It's as simple as that. They can determine their points on how the team goes at times and how they're helped out by the midfield. So he's a risky one, but I think, he's worth throwing in there as a cheeky one to put on your radar. But definitely we know how well he can score, and I definitely think he'll average 95 plus. It's just a matter of if he can hit those 3 figures. So there's a bit of a look at the Crows in the first instalment of Shorty's Shortlist. I hope you've enjoyed it. Comment any players from the Crows that you feel are on your radar at the moment, or any ones you're locking away. And there are definitely a few that I think I'll be looking at and tracking closely. But definitely subscribe to the channel if you're into all the SuperCoach, and I'll definitely be having more videos, and we'll be previewing all the other clubs throughout. We'll go alphabetically, so of course Brisbane will be up next. Hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned, keep clicking back to the channel, and I'll see you guys all soon.